cleanup underway this morning after 3 separate statues in downtown Toronto were defaced during a Black Lives Matter rally over the weekend. These are notable key figures who've come under fire for their roles in the establishment of the residential school system in Canada and ties to anti-Indigenous racism.
These statues are symbols of racism and colonialism, and the biggest symbol of racism and colonialism that we need to tear down in our society is the police and prison system.
3 protesters were arrested and charged, accused of defacing these monuments. That brought an even bigger crowd outside the police station, with BLM calling into question why and how they were detained.
The questions that we have are, why is it okay for police to continuously get away with harmful behavior like this?
Pink paint was thrown on statues of problematic figures, including former Prime Minister John A. Macdonald and King Edward VII at Queen's Park and Egerton Ryerson on the university campus. 3 protesters have been charged with 3 counts of mischief under $5,000 and conspiracy to commit a summary offense. Black Lives Matter says they were detained for 17 hours.
They weren't being allowed legal counsel. They were being treated as though, they didn't have these rights that everybody always says we have the right to support from these systems.
A number of provincial and municipal politicians quickly calling on the release of the detained protesters after a Toronto lawyer also said she couldn't get to her clients, saying police weren't transparent.
It didn't need to take over 15 hours and hundreds of community members.
Police Chief Mark Saunders said there were false narratives being presented around access to legal counsel and claims on how long it took to release the 3 protesters. Quote, as is the case in all similar arrests, each of these individuals was provided the opportunity to sign a release, agreeing to appear in court. Each had access to counsel in the mid-afternoon. Despite 2 indicating they would seek release, they later refused and instead chose to remain in custody for many hours, longer than was required.
I'm not a lawyer, but what I would say is it doesn't make sense that they were detained and not given their rights.
It's not the first time these statues were vandalized, with Saran Gebrselassie pointing to the fact students on campuses do the same during Frosh Week.
They do pranks, they engage in some all kinds of creative and artistic disruptions, and that's a form of that's something that's celebrated and rewarded.
Following this weekend's events, we did reach out to Ryerson University, a spokesperson saying in a statement, quote, while some members of the Ryerson community may not agree with or understand the painting of the statue, we do understand and expect disagreements. In the words of our statement on freedom of speech, Ryerson does not avoid controversies, difficult ideas, or disagreements over deeply held views. And by the statue here, a plaque that does acknowledge Egerton Ryerson's history and role with the residential school system here in Canada. The school telling City News it has not made a decision on whether or not to remove the statue. For City News, I'm Faiza Amin.